Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry to be tardy. I wasn't watching the clock and we were washing dishes, so my apologies. He's going to have another session with us this afternoon for approximately an hour or so, so hopefully you all can stay awake. No one needs their siestas. We are thrilled that you have all stayed. Hope you enjoyed lunch, and we are really grateful that they were able to come and spend the weekend with us. We've all enjoyed and been blessed so much by what we've heard so far, and I have no doubt that that will continue today and tomorrow. So hopefully we will see most of you back tomorrow for the cooking class. That will be at 10 a.m. in the fellowship hall. And we have a beautiful handout, so you'll have things to take home with you. I've seen a preview. It's gorgeous. So you will have things to take home with you and resources when you leave the cooking class. So it will be hopefully a blessed time for all. Let's just open with a quick word of prayer, and then I will turn it back over to Maurice. Dear gracious Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this Sabbath. Thank you for the time that we have been able to spend fellowshipping and learning about each other, and having time to discuss and consider the importance of taking care of our bodies and learning more about how to take care of the temple that you have so graciously blessed us with. And as we think about how we can better take care of our bodies, help us each to remember that this is not necessarily just for us, but for us to be able to be ministers to the world. And there are so many hurting and sick people around us. The more that we can learn and share with others, the more that we can be a blessing and share your love. And they will know we are Christians by our love, and really ministering to people's physical and mental health is one way that we can open doors and then be able to share the gospel with them. And so while we want to make sure that the reforms stay in their proper place, we do recognize that you have given us such a gift. And I just pray that each one of us will have our minds and hearts open to learn more about that gift as we go through the rest of this afternoon and into tomorrow. And I thank you for the blessing of being able to gather together in person, and also for our guests coming and sharing their knowledge with us. And I pray this in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Crystal. That was a beautiful prayer. Amen. How's everyone doing? All right, praise God. I know I won't keep you long. I know it's Sabbath afternoon, and how's that? That's better? Sorry about that. I'm not used to being wired up, but I just praise God, and I'm thankful for each one of you here. We're just going to take just about an hour. We won't take much time, just to go through a few things. And of course, we're not going to go through in depth, because for time's sake, I'm just going to kind of just skim. I'm hoping that the health team will invite me back, where my wife and I can do a natural remedies and seminar, where we can do some hands-on, some fomentations and some massage and some hot and cold, and share with you some practical ways to actually address certain conditions that we may have. But for today, we're going to move forward, and just at the end, we're just going to have like a 15-minute question and answer period. So if something comes up that you're like, what's that? Just make a note of it. We'll have maybe 15 minutes at the end to ask some questions, okay? So, a lot of times people will walk by in their house and they'll stub their toe, right, on something. And but they just keep doing it. They just keep hitting their toe on the same thing. And it gets so painful. Like, they do it so many times. It's like, and then one day they go, oh, I need to go to the doctor and get a painkiller. I need to get a painkiller. And they get a painkiller and from the doctor prescription, And they're like, oh, it feels so much better. Feels so much better. But they just keep kicking their toe on the table. And they go, oh man, I'm so glad I have this painkiller. Thank God for modern medicine. I can always keep kicking my toe and just take this drug. Now, wouldn't it make more sense just to stop kicking the toe? I know, right? I know, it's just so simple. And this is kind of what we deal with in our medical system. And I'm not putting down the medical system. I'm just saying there's two types of medical systems. There's one called rational therapy, and one is called conventional therapy. So conventional therapy basically has the faucet dripping over the sink, on the floor, and decides, let's get some mop buckets. Let's invest in the best buckets and the best mops. And just get the whole team, get 100 people mopping. Rational therapy goes, let's go over and turn off the faucet. You see the difference? Conventional medicine primarily addresses the symptoms. Rational therapy addresses the actual underlying cause. So this is how we approach a natural remedy. We look at the cause and paying attention to some of the symptoms, but it always leads us back to the culprit, the cause, and we want to go there. So in North America today, or the world in general, but primarily North America, the leading cause of death is heart disease. It's a condition that, which interestingly enough, Dane, this monitor has some different things on it. Okay, it's fine. I'll keep going though. Yeah, so we're going to talk about heart disease, cancer, diabetes, and Alzheimer's, dementia a little bit. Thank you, Dane. So heart disease is a very prevalent situation. Most people, there's a situation, we lived in Alabama, my wife and I, for 11 years, and it's a really interesting thing. If you live in the South, or you live in the States, primarily the South, you either know someone, it's kind of a segue, but you understand in a second. You either know someone who is, or related to someone who's either has been in the military or has worked at Walmart. All right, I know, you're like, what? What's going on? Same thing, heart disease. Either you know someone who's had heart disease, or you have a friend of someone, a friend of yours has had a friend that has a heart disease, because it's very prevalent in North America. It's something that everyone talks about, and it's something that can be addressed, and we're going to talk about it today. But according to the World Health Organization, we know who they are. Health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. I like to add, this is a very good definition, of which I would like to add this spiritual well-being, because we're a whole being. Now, keeping that in mind, disease never comes without a cause. The way is first prepared, and disease invited in by a disregard or neglect of the laws of health. Now, most of us who drive, sometimes we get the scary check engine light on the dashboard, and we panic. We go, oh, my car's going to blow up. No, not right away. But if it's neglected, eventually the car may blow up. But that check engine light tells us something. Tells us that something is not right. Disease is an effort of nature to free the system from conditions that result from a violation of the laws of health. Now, aren't you glad that, in a sense, that you have this check engine light built in your system? Because if your body were just to shut down at the first time something went wrong, I think everyone would be falling over. You get my point? But you get a disease which lets you know something's not right. Make sense? So consider disease, strange enough, as almost a friend. It's a warning signal. Okay, hopefully it's not far gone or neglected like the car light and it just blows up. But disease is a way that nature tells us that something you're doing, that you keep kicking your foot against that doorpost for weeks and months and years, expecting to find a magic bullet or conventional medicine to help you, versus just stop kicking your toe on the doorpost. So that's what disease is there for. This is like a fever. You all had fevers before. I mentioned the fever thing this morning. But fever is actually a sign that tells you that you have an infection. It's a marker. It tells you there's something wrong. So having a fever isn't bad in and of itself. It's saying you have something that's wrong with you. So our body talks to us. It's amazing. So we need to listen. The human family has been and still suffers due to ignorance. And that's where we come in. We, as in all of us, or negligence to the laws of health. And the laws of health that we're talking about are the very simple ones that have been around for a long time. And I'll say it again for those who've never heard them. Nutrition, exercise, water, sunshine, temperance, air, rest, trust in divine power, and an attitude of gratitude. Having these in your life and implementing them intelligently will change your life. Absolutely. Okay, so let's talk about heart disease. So this is a number from last year, not last year, but a few years ago, 2021. So 700,000 people died that didn't need to die. They didn't need to. Because heart disease, see, the thing is, you weren't born with heart disease, which means it's something that you developed over life through habits, through kicking your foot against that doorpost for years and years and years, or by eating your way to death. You weren't born with heart disease, so how did you get it? Certain behaviors created the pattern where eventually the body says, I just can't do it anymore. And it shows up in different conditions that we call heart disease. And so these 700,000 people could have been prevented if we had an army of youth, young and old, out there educating the masses on a better way to live. Do you see the urgency we have here, guys? We have a major urgency to help people. But let's talk about heart disease and how it works. Okay, so some risk factors, basically, for heart disease is obesity. So yeah, most people weren't born obese, but how did it happen? Just over time. Keep kicking their foot against the same doorpost. Insulin resistance and diabetes, we're going to talk about that separately. High cholesterol and blood pressure issues. Again, you weren't born with that. So how did you get into that situation? Remember, the human family suffers due to a ignorance or neglect of basic health principles. So they talk about family history and heart disease. So here's the thing with heart disease and hereditary, or any disease and genetics. So genetically, you could be prone through family relation. But genetics basically is the loaded gun, but the lifestyle pulls the trigger. Because we all can have the same genes, are prone to the same situation, but I never get the condition because my lifestyle is different from your lifestyle. Make sense? So when people say, oh, well, my grandmother was born with diabetes, my grandmother had diabetes, my mother had diabetes, so guess I will get diabetes. Well, one of the reasons why you will, because if you have the same lifestyle as your grandmother and your mother, and you ate the same way and lived how your mother lived, guaranteed. But it's not guaranteed in the sense that because you had that gene in place that you'll ever have it. The lifestyle. Smoking, of course, no one's born smoking. Habits that people pick up. Eating, unhealthy diet, and depression. Now, I'll talk about the unhealthy diet for a little bit. So, when babies are born, babies will eat anything. It doesn't have to be sweet, salty, or anything. Just bland, they're happy with it. So Gerber, you guys know Gerber Baby Food, the company? So when Gerber Baby Food is testing a new product, they don't bring in babies. You know what they do? They bring in mothers. They bring in mothers and they actually formulate the baby food for the mothers. And the moms will try the new one and go, this is so nice and sweet, Johnny will love it. So guess what? She starts to feed Johnny sweet things. Guess what Johnny gets used to? Sweet things. So we are programmed by habits. We're programmed by habits. Every 3 weeks, the taste buds change. And if 2-3 weeks ago there was something you didn't like, give it 2 to 3 weeks, and all of a sudden it'll taste great. So we want to make sure that we pay attention to these risk factors as some issues that will set us up for something like heart disease. I want to go back to the first one, obesity. So, actually, let me just jump down a little bit here. Okay, this one's a little bit redundant, but I'm going to put it up here for a little bit. Sedentary lifestyle. So you know that sitting is the new smoking, right? You've heard of it? So if you have a sedentary job, and that's all you do, like you can have a sedentary job, but make sure you implement exercise program in your lifestyle. But if you don't, it's just a matter of time before you could be in a position where you have heart disease challenges. High fat diet, we're going to talk about that in diabetes for a little bit, but the same factor happens. Fat has to go somewhere. So the body sees fat as energy, right? So when you eat it, it tries to break it down, especially if it's later in the evening. It stores it as fat. And fat, when I'm talking about fat, we're just talking about calories. It could be nuts, seeds, oils, and of course some trans fat issues. So we have to be careful that we're eating the right foods. We have to pay attention to that. Remember, no one is forcing you, no one has a gun to your head to eat what you eat. You make an intelligent decision whether or not to put poison or to put healthy stuff in your mouth. Why not make a decision to put the right fuel in your body? It's just like a car, So I have this car that takes special high-grade fuel. And back when the fuel prices were out of this world, I wasn't happy about it. But the manufacturers who make that car, they know what the right fuel is for that car. Make sense? Do you think God knows what the right fuel for our bodies are? So this is why we're having such a big challenge. When it comes to heart disease and many other diseases that we struggle with, to a large degree, nutrition plays a big role. It's not the only role, but a huge role in affecting our health. It talks about excessive drinking. Of course, we shouldn't be drinking alcohol in general, or period. Now, it also talks about staying in a high-stress environment without proper stress management techniques. So stress can be very detrimental if you don't know how to handle it. Some complications with heart disease, of course, eventually could lead to heart attack, heart failure, cardiomyopathy, stroke. So when you have a blockage, so basically heart disease is simply a blockage of an artery that feeds the heart. Now, if you have a same blockage in your head, we call that a stroke. No different. It's basically dealing with circulation. And for those who were here yesterday, perfect health begins with perfect circulation. So anything that blocks the circulation is bad for your health. You're not getting nutrients, you're not getting oxygen. It sets you up for a bad situation. So you can just see a list of complications that can happen when you get into a bad lifestyle. Now, as I mentioned last night as well, one of the best kept secrets in medicine is that if the body is given the right environment, it will heal itself. I know, right? It's too simple. You're like, what? How can that be? Well, remember, you weren't born with heart disease. So why don't you just reverse everything that you were doing specifically and see what the body does? So you guys are familiar with I asked it last night, that documentary, Forks Over Knives. So Dr. Campbell and Dr. Esselstyn primarily drove this documentary. And Dr. Campbell would look at diets, and he would notice that once he would put a patient on a strict plant-based diet, within weeks, not months, within weeks, he would see the arteries starting to reopen. Just within weeks. And then on cancer, I'll just touch on it really quick. Dr. Campbell used to do experiments with mice and cancer, and he would actually feed them a high casein milk cheese diet, and tumors would explode in these mice. Then he would turn down or reduce the amount of protein in the form of cheese and casein, and he would watch the cancer cells just get smaller, to show the relations between diet and the body. So if you get a chance, check it out. It's on Netflix, Forks Over Knives. It's a good documentary to watch. Recommend it. So let's talk about some treatments on this one. Of course, studies have shown that a plant-based diet has been beneficial in reversing blocked arteries. It's unbelievable. Elephants live to how old usually? Yeah, about 80. Yeah. Just eating leaves and grass out in the bush, quite happy. And you never hear them complaining about they need more protein. Oh, right, yeah, because elephants don't eat other elephants to get protein. They don't need to do that. They get it all from their plants. The only way you can be protein deficient is if you're calorie deficient, because everything you eat has protein in it. Protein is a building block built up from amino acids, which is in every living organism. So whether you eat lettuce, beans, rice, anything organic, it has protein in it. So you can never be protein deficient. Anyways, start an exercise routine at least 3 times a week. I mentioned the HIIT program, the high intensity interval training, where you get your body up to peak operating system for at least 30 seconds, rest for 60 to 90 seconds, and do it 6 times. Usually within 15 minutes, you can have your exercise routine done for the day, and your heart will thank you. Drink more water, stay hydrated. Can't say it enough. The heart is about 85% water. It's a muscle. Most muscles run around 85% water. That's why if someone gets dehydrated, the first thing they feel is they feel weak. They feel extremely fatigued. They just don't have the energy to do it. So we want to drink water, and we want to drink our water at least an hour before and an hour after our meals. We talked about that briefly last night. Some herbs. Okay, there's a whole list of herbs. If I come back and I do a presentation on natural remedies, I'll give you a whole list of herbs that are specific just to help with heart health and circulation. But just a few here. garlic, ginger, and onions. Onions and garlic are really prominent in helping to normalize your cholesterol levels, so your HDL and LDL. And so onions and garlic, fantastic to add to your meals, or you can have it on its own, however you want to do it. Of course, there's herbs such as hawthorn and ginkgo and so forth that have been very beneficial. And of course, last but not least on this one is let's get about 7 to 8 hours sleep every night. You have to get your sleep. Now, last night I talked about sleep for a little bit, and there's one thing I wanted to tell you. So as Adventists, how many of you have all heard that we need to get 2 hours of sleep before midnight? Yeah, see? Always. I've heard it my whole Adventist life. We need to get to bed by 9:30, 10 o'clock. It's so crucial. Ellen White even talks about it. We need to get 2 hours before midnight. But do you know why? It's okay. Most people don't know why. But I can tell you why. Okay? I'll tell you why. And I didn't make it up. I'm not an expert on this, but Dr. Wes Youngberg, you guys know Dr. Wes out of California? He wrote the book on diabetes. Amazing, talented guy. If you ever get a chance, read his books. Dr. Wes Youngberg, Adventist fella. I was at a seminar here in Abbotsford 8 years ago. And Dr. Wes Youngberg broke this down for us. We were in awe because one of his things is Alzheimer's, his big subject that he covers, diabetes and Alzheimer's. And so what happens is you need the 2 hours before midnight when your circadian rhythm is starting to go down. It helps your body to actually fall into a deep REM sleep, deepest sleep that you can get. When this happens, and happens probably around 2, 3 in the morning, around your brain you have the meninges, okay? There's a fluid that surrounds the brain, but it's attached to the spinal fluid. When you go into that deep sleep, the brain actually shrinks just a little bit. The spinal fluid from your back comes into the brain, flushes out toxins, pulls it back into the spinal column, and then flushes out through the lymph nodes. So if you don't get to bed and get a good night's rest, your brain is full of garbage. It's never flushed. It's never cleansed. That's one of the key reasons why we need to get to bed 2 hours before midnight to get the toxins out of our brains. Are we amazingly made or what? I'm telling you, it's a powerful thing. Okay, honey, I may need that power cord after all. It's getting close. The power cord. I may need it. I'm really close. Okay, we're gonna segue a little bit to cancer. Now, cancer is one of my favorite topics. So as you know, UT Pines is basically a school, a treatment center, and of course they run a Country Life restaurant there in Columbus, Georgia. And cancer is one of their big things. So as a student, this is what I was trained on. And one of my first patients, I was like, oh my goodness, we've got a live cancer patient here in front of us. I worked with a cancer patient and for 3 weeks with one of my coaches. And about a month later, we got a letter back that the gentleman went in for a checkup. And after all tests were done, there was no cancer found. So we know how to reverse cancer. It's not rocket science. It's something that we've been dealing with for many, many years. And it's something that is in this one. I apologize here, guys. Awesome, thank you. Yeah, so cancer is one of the things that I like to work with because you weren't born with it, right? So something happened that created it. We're going to talk about what caused it here for a second, or what causes it. All right, let's talk about some obvious ones. All right, smoking, not protecting yourself from the sun, certain genetic changes, being overweight or obese, here we go again, not having a healthy diet, here we go again, not getting enough physical activity. These are sound familiar? All these sound familiar? Okay, drinking alcohol, coming into contact with harmful chemicals at home or at work, and having certain types of infections. Now, so cancer specifically likes three things. Three things. It likes more, but it likes three. It loves sugar. Loves sugar. Cancer loves sugar. Keep that in mind. Cancer loves a blood pH that's acidic. Cancer loves someone that eats a lot of meat. They love acidic blood. And cancer loves no oxygen. They love it when there's no oxygen around. Okay? So I just pointed out what cancer loves, so how do we fix that? Really, it's easy, right? So we just eliminate sugar, we add more oxygen, and get a higher alkaline-based diet, which is a plant-based diet. Isn't that crazy? That's simple. Like, there's a lot more to it, but those are some simple changes that we can make today to get ourselves in line of being healthy and avoiding the big C. A lot of times people hear cancer and it's like, oh, it's devastating. You know, we have Dr. Benson. Dr. Benson was one of the directors, he's retired now, at Andrews University. Good friend of ours through our contact with Fountain View. We were at Fountain View for 6 years and he was on the board. He came down, and I think he'd be fine us sharing the story. Came down with pancreatic cancer. It's not a fun one, okay? The pancreas is responsible for producing insulin, which controls blood sugar levels. So usually if cancer is there, it's almost, they usually just start to, count the days down for you. His wife would go to the hospital every day with a green smoothie, carrot juice, right? I mean, he was in the hospital, so he had to go with the hospital protocol, but they allowed her to come in. And I just saw Dr. Benson the other day, doing great. This was like 9 years ago, but I just saw him the other day, retired now, just living life, all happy. So what I'm saying is, it can be reversed and it can be addressed, and I've seen it so many times. So if someone has cancer or is struggling with it, you can reach out to me and we can try to work through it, but don't be afraid of cancer. Remember, all it's telling you is that something is wrong. Something is wrong. So don't be afraid of it. And a lot of times we get nervous, and of course you guys have heard of Dr. Lorraine Day. Dr. Lorraine Day, back in 1981, 82, Adventist doctor, actually, out of California. She came down with cancer. And as a doctor, she's Adventist, as a doctor, she knew what all her colleagues knew about cancer, which was nothing. True story. She just recently passed away, though, she was 80-something. But this happened back in 80, 81 in California. So she said, if you listen to her story, it's on YouTube. She said, I'm a doctor, and I know what all my other colleagues know, and we know nothing about cancer. So she started juicing carrots. I know, right? Carrots, go figure. Good for fever, good for cancer. She started juicing carrots. The tumor got big as it was in her breast, as big as a golf ball or however big it was, a bowling ball. Just terrible situation. She had to go through so much. It took about 1.5 or 2 years. Finally, shrunk. cancer went away. Okay, so, and she lived for 30, 40 years later. So we don't need to be afraid of cancer. We just need to address the issues that cancer likes to grow in and see if we can reverse that and put ourselves in a really good condition. So this patient that I had, my first patient that I had as a student, well, I've just finished up the program, I'll tell you what his day looked like, as best I can remember. It's a protocol. I have some of it here, but I'm just going to fly through it for time. So he would get up in the morning, of course, he would drink his water. Oh yeah, how about that? He would drink his water, and he had his devotions, and then he would have red clover tea, golden seal tea, and Pardiarco. Okay, Pardiarco is an herb, it's a tea, and a lot of people, if you research Pardiarco, people call it the anti-cancer tea. People just drink it as a evening tea, just for the fun of it, just to prevent cancer, but it has a kind of nice taste. So he would have Pardiarco, red clover, golden seal, echinacea teas in the morning, and then about an hour or so he'll have breakfast, and then he'll go for a walk, and then we would, we as in myself and my coach that I worked with at the time, we would get him, and he would get a massage. This is every day. He would get a massage, and after the massage, he would have another glass of water, and about an hour or so, we'd take him down to the hydrotherapy tanks. We took him down to the hydrotherapy tanks, and I don't know if you've ever had hydrotherapy before, but to have a fever treatment, there's all kinds of hydrotherapy treatments, right? They could be, heating compress, contrast baths, hot and cold. Really, but we did a full immerse fever treatment. So these numbers are going to be in Fahrenheit. I'm about to give you. So normally, the body's body temperature is 98.6. So when someone goes to do a fever treatment, you normally put them in at 99, so it's comfortable. And they could just walk right in and sit down. For this gentleman, because of his case, his water starting temperature was 110. I could barely put my hand in it. But he'd walk in, true story, he'd walk in, and because it was so severe, we had to constantly monitor his pulse, his heart rate, his hydration, and what we did while we were doing this, we had a hymnal, we'd be singing hymns. So we're keeping him hydrated, keeping him cool, checking his pulse, his heart rate, because he could have a heart attack at that temperature. Because within minutes, heart rate goes woof off the roofs. So you have to keep your head cool to endure something like that. And we kept him in there for 20 minutes every day. Every day. He would also get a concoction with flax seeds and flax oil, of course, big salads, plant-based diet, of course. And then he would take a nap. So after the fever treatment, you have to take a nap. It completely wipes you out. And then he would go for a walk again and come back for supper. And we did this every day for 3 weeks. Like I said, after a month, he left. After a month, we got a letter back. That's when people still wrote letters. Got a letter back, and there was no cancer found. So we know how that for certain ones, you have to be very aggressive. And so we use hydrotherapy a lot. My wife and I, we use it all the time. We believe in hydrotherapy because what it does, remember what cancer likes? Okay. What it does, it increases oxygenation through circulation. It causes the body, so when it comes to pH, food does affect pH, but we have our kidneys. Our kidneys are what regulates our pH in our bodies. So when we drink enough water and, of course, eat enough the right foods, your body, if your body is too acidic, your kidneys will regulate how much acid will go out, or acidic foods will go out through urine, and you'll pee it out. And if you're not enough, it'll maintain the water to make sure that your pH is right. So you don't have to worry about too much about that, but you still need to focus on avoiding certain foods that will raise the body's acidity acidity. Okay, so just to continue here. So some factors, again, high meat and fat consumptions, coffees, teas, colas, the lack of iodine, vitamin A, C, and E. Processed foods. It's interesting that, processed meats are known carcinogens. Processed meats by the FDA are known. They're actually just in the same category as cigarettes. Oh yeah, the FDA has made that very clear. But they will never tell you not to eat meat. They can't say it. Of course, they'll kill the meat industry and they'll have a lawsuit. So they've just classified processed meats, the deli meats that people make, on their sandwiches for kids and stuff like that for lunch every day. It's a known carcinogen, but yet it's freely given. And cheese. Now, cheese in and of itself is one of the biggest factors for affecting the blood pH. So here's one of the challenges with cheese. One, not only is it an animal product, which is high in fat, high in sodium, and high in protein, the way they make cheese is interesting. So the way you get milk to become putrefied is you take the intestines of either a pig or a sheep, it's called rennet, to cause the milk to rot faster. By the rotting process, it produces enzymes that are toxic. That's why it tastes so good. It tastes so good, right? I haven't had cheese in 33 years, but people are addicted to cheese. Many people will tell you, I will become plant-based. I will stop eating everything except can't give up my cheese. Very addictive. Cheese is a poison to the human body. And really, the funny thing about this is, I'm going to segue a little bit. For in regard to when it comes to milk and cheese. And I'm not going to pound it to death, but I'm just going to tell you this one point. If what we are after as humans, we're supposed to be logical, reasoning beings, correct? Logical, reasoning beings. But what if what we're after is high protein and high fat and the best that food we can consume, then we are actually doing, for those who want to eat cheese or drink milk, we're really actually doing ourselves a disservice because dairy milk isn't the best milk when it comes to nutrients, fat, and proteins. If you want to get the best milk that an animal can provide, it's rat's milk. A rat, a rodent. So I would suggest those who want to get the best protein, they should stop doing cow's milk and go right to rat's milk if they want to get the best. Because we're logical thinking humans, right? Makes no sense that we would try to take the food of a calf and thinking it's the food that we should have. But we're still not even getting the best food. We're not getting the best. Get the best, go to a rat. Get a rat's milk. But I know it's disgusting, isn't it? So truly, what's the difference? They're both animals. What's the difference between a cow and a rodent? They're both animals. Just milk them both. Oh no, because we've been programmed that cows are normal. Oh, I get it. Programming, I get it. Do you see the false ideas that we're talking about? We're so used to that it's normal, right? It's normal to milk a cow. Where did it come from? Where did that come from? Like the first guy who looked at a cow and says, whatever that's coming out of there, I want some of that. Like, where did that come from? So, no, I'm not being funny. I'm just being very legit because we're supposed to be the highest. We are created to be the highest form of civilization. We're the highest form of thinking, but yet we do some really interesting things. We get rid of the calf and take the calf's food. Milk is designed for baby cows. Are we baby cows? Are we baby cows? No, I'm not. I'm just saying. It's quite interesting the things that we do, and we normalize it. It becomes norm in society, and no one questions it. No one questions it. You know, in some countries they milk horses. You guys don't know this, right? In Tibet and Siberia, they milk horses because that's what they're used to. Like you wouldn't milk a horse, but some people do that. That's the milk that they drink. They drink horse milk. There's no cows around. They have horses because that's what you're used to. But why not just eat the plants? Why get it secondhand? Avoid all the stuff that we're talking about. Okay. High intake of certain vitamins. So that would be, it's not using certain vitamins. I'll have to dig that up a little bit. I was just doing some research here and putting my thoughts together. Of course, refined foods. We talked about refined foods a little bit last night. High fat again, high protein. We'll talk about diabetes in a little bit and being overweight. We'll talk about that again. And the last one is very important. I touched on this last night when I was doing the GI tract, the high transit time through the colon. So there's a lot of schools of thought out there that believe that cancer is a virus. It's caused by a virus. Some people believe it's caused just by free radical cells, just not splitting or splitting too fast. Some people think that it caused just by chemical reactions. So a lot of different thoughts out there. But we do know that if your toxin load is too high, that means your pH, acidic blood level, is also too high. And transit time through the colon has been connected also with colon cancer and just with cancer in general. And what I mean by transit time through the colon simply means how often do you go to the bathroom? How often do you go to the bathroom? If you're eating 3 meals a day, you should at least be going twice, at least. If at least once, please tell me once, at least. If the average American actually goes to the bathroom, I think 2 times a week. Yeah. So this is why we're dealing with these conditions. They eat high refined foods. High refined food has no fiber. No fiber means nothing is moving. Hence, health issues happen constantly. Different factors, estrogen, again, that doesn't really mean anything, but hair dyes, the use of tobacco, alcohol drinks, fumes, stress, exposure to cold, heat, radiation. So a lot of things, like I said, the last one here is some people believe this could be a viral infection that could cause it, cancer. But we do know the 3 things that cancer loves. If you pay attention to those, we can address. And they are, again, they love sugar. They love no oxygen. And what's the other one? Yeah. Blood levels being acidic, so we need to avoid that. Quick here. So, the objective of the cancer routine are to improve circulation and to oxygenation of the cell. We're just doing a recap on this one. To change the intestinal flora with a higher fiber diet, to discourage cancer cells growth with hot baths, right? By the way, one of the reasons for the hot bath as well, the fever treatments, it increases circulation, like drastically. The immune system goes off the charts. The white blood cells are fired, all of them. Every one of them are just And they're looking for cancer cells all the time. So that's why exercise and fever treatments are used to stimulate blood flow. To stimulate the immune mechanism for cancer resistance and to combat toxins which cause anemia and loss of appetite. Because a lot of times people have cancer, and one of the first things they do, they have no appetite, they don't want to eat, they don't feel well, of course, because the body's dealing with stuff. So that's the objective when you do a hydrotherapy or a cancer routine. You really want to look at how we can get healthy foods into the body, help the gut to be getting rid of toxins. Because remember, there's several ways we get rid of toxins, right? We get rid of toxins through our skin. We get rid of toxins when we go to the bathroom, number one, and number two. And so we want to make sure that these things are happening, but they won't happen if we're not well hydrated and we don't have the proper high fiber foods in our system. And so getting rid of toxins is just as important. Getting what stuff out is just as important as the stuff that we're putting in. So it's important to keep that in mind. Okay, vegetables eat freely, fruits generously, grains moderately, fruits, nuts, and grains in general. Nuts and seeds sparingly when it comes to cancer because it's a fat, it's harder to break down. Avoid oils, margarines, and stuff like that. Of course, fried foods. And of course, omit all animal products, meat, milk, cheese, eggs, butter, yogurt, and ice cream. Yeah, it's a tough one for a lot of people. Yeah. Use only whole grain cereals and breads, pastas, so forth. Make sure you're cooking all your grains. So grains are carbohydrates, for those who didn't know this. It's a carbohydrate. And if you ever looked at a carbohydrate on the microscope, the DNA, the strands are actually locked. They're kind of locked like that. The body won't absorb it. When you cook your grains, they actually open up and unlock, and then they can be absorbed into the system. Just a little FYI. That's why it's important to cook your grains. Don't eat raw anything, grains, when it comes to carbohydrates. Of course, raw vegetables, but don't eat raw potatoes and raw rice or raw grains, okay? And use legumes and so forth. Let's make sure that we're eating well. Also, yeah, this is important to mention a little bit. When it comes to if someone they're dealing with cancer, 1 or 2 meals is really all they need, because the normal 3 meals that we have here in North America can be a burden on the system because they're already fighting stuff. Their body's already burdened. So if you can skip a meal, because fasting has benefits. There's some benefits to fasting that we can talk about. So eat a lot of fruits and vegetables as well. Chew your food well, which I talk about. So this is just a routine that we had put together a long time ago. And again, just keep reiterating here. Aloe vera juice is something that is really good. Now, aloe vera is a really interesting thing. It's really good for the stomach, but it's an amazing carrier. What I mean by that is a company called Lily of the Desert aloe vera juice company. You've probably seen it. You probably all bought it. It's called Lily of the Desert aloe vera juice. They did a study with aloe vera juice and lemons. So when you say take a lemon and you take some lemon juice, the body uptakes, say, 10% of it. When they put lemon juice with aloe vera, the uptake was 500 times more. So if you have something that you want the body to really pull in, aloe vera juice is a really good carrier for that. Drink 6 to 8 ounces of fresh carrot juice. I can't talk about carrot juice enough. It's a study in itself. I found out that in China, before carrots were grown as what we call a vegetable today, it was actually grown as a medicinal product. Carrots. So I can talk about it all day. Eat carrots, grapes, cabbage. If you notice, it's all the cruciferous foods because they're high in benefits like antioxidants that will actually help the body to heal faster. So just a bit overview. And of course, we can't forget to employ all the other 8 laws of health. So we just focus a little bit on nutrition and when it comes to cancer. Okay, let's move ahead. Diabetes. If you get a chance, Dr. Wes Youngberg book on diabetes is a fantastic book. And also for those who are taking notes or online or you'll do some research later, check out nutritionfacts.org. Nutritionfacts.org is put together by Dr. Michael Greger, nonprofit. He's a doctor who believes in plant-based living and has put together studies after study after study how just implementing a simple plant-based diet can not only prevent but can reverse all of our common diseases that we have here in North America. You know, there's some countries that they don't even have diabetes in their vocabulary. They don't know what that is. In the Western world, a couple of things that we have in our vocabulary for sure is heart disease and osteoporosis, cancer, and diabetes. And so, Dr. Michael Greger, nutritionfacts.org, just plug in for him there. And it's a good resource. It's a good resource. If you ever want to research anything really quick, nutritionfacts.org, go for it. So in 2020, which was an interesting year, 100,000 Americans died from diabetes and its complications. So the challenge with diabetes, there's type 1 and type 2. Type 1 is a little bit tricky. Type 2 is a little bit more easier to work with, and it can be reversed. We've seen it being reversed. So the challenge with type 1 diabetes is that some people think it's genetic, but it's more what they call autoimmune. Autoimmune is where your immune system is, something's fighting your immune system's fighting against your own body. It's really hard to pinpoint, so we're still working on that one. Type 2, though, is very simple. You weren't born with it for the most part, so what happened was something happened that triggered it. So as I mentioned, when any type of carbohydrates, sugar of any form, gets into the system, the pancreas will excrete bile, which is a hormone that would then, sorry, that's fats. Get my thoughts. Correction. The pancreas will secrete insulin into the bloodstream to check how fast and how much sugar is released into the bloodstream. This insulin also forces the sugar that's flowing through your blood into tissues, through these gateways, into the tissues, into the muscles. The problem with type 2 diabetes is that there's not enough receptors, or your pancreas isn't working to produce enough insulin. 9 times out of 10, though, there's not enough receptors. There's not enough doors open to get the sugar out of the blood. That's what receptors are called. One of the easiest ways to create more receptors is just to exercise. Create a demand for more blood, and the body will open more doors and lower the sugar level in your blood. I know, right? So easy, so easy. But if you go to the doctor, they have something called metformin. Yeah, they will hook you up on some stuff. You know, I have a friend of mine. He's one of the head physicians. He's one of the head prescription drugs pharmacists at the prison over in Abbotsford. And I asked him, I said, what's the most common medication that you prescribe? And he says, well, for the most part, most of my days is filled with filling prescriptions for Lipitor and Viagra. And I'm like, what? How does that even make sense? They're in prison. Everyone's in prison. What do you need that for? But I'm not going down that road. So I asked him about the Lipitor. He says, yeah, I prescribe Lipitor and Viagra every day at this prison, the men's prison here in Abbotsford. So, and you know what Lipitor is used for, right? Yeah, cholesterol. Yeah, so, and you know where cholesterol comes from? Yeah. So we produce cholesterol ourselves. Every human does. Every living organism with a liver produces cholesterol. Cholesterol is built in because it's a hormone. When vitamin D, which is the sunlight, when the sun hits our skin, the cholesterol beneath our skin is converted into vitamin D, which helps our body to absorb nutrients, primarily calcium. That's why we need sunlight. But that being said, one of the ways you can raise your cholesterol level out the roof is to consume other things that have cholesterol, i.e. meat. So the best way to reduce your cholesterol levels is to reduce the amount of animal products or eliminate it. But in today's society, Lipitor is the #1 selling prescribed medication in North America. One of the side effects of that is erectile dysfunction. Go figure. Anyways, there's all kinds of, all of these things are tied together, guys. I'm just telling you, if we just make simple changes, we're able to fix the problem. Okay, some symptoms of diabetes on the early side: feeling more thirsty than usual, urinating more often, losing weight without trying, presence of ketones in the urine. So ketones are a byproduct breakdown of muscle and fat that happen when there's not enough available insulin. So this is where someone is just not producing enough insulin. Try to wrap this up really quick. Again, feeling tired and weak, feeling irritable or having other mood changes, having blurry visions, having slow healing sores. So if someone has a wound that's not healing after 2 weeks, we may want to take a look at that a little bit closer. And they get a lot of infections as well, right? So it doesn't mean that they are having diabetes because of this. We may just need to look at all the other factors, okay? But it's something to think about. So we just talked about it. Insulin is a hormone that comes from a gland behind the stomach called the pancreas. The pancreas releases insulin to the bloodstream. The insulin circulates, letting sugar enter the cells. Insulin lowers the amount of sugar in the bloodstream. As the blood sugar level drops, so does the secretion of insulin from the pancreas. So we have a friend, Dr. Just lost his name, out of Seattle. It'll come back to me. Tim Rosenberger. Thank you, dear. You guys know Tim? Tim Rosenberger, he's out of Seattle. Yeah, so he had a patient with diabetes, and he basically got him diabetic, type 2 diabetes, of course. He got him off his insulin, got him back in normal in 2 days? 3 days? 3 days. Type 2 diabetes. And do you want to hear what the solution was? You want to hear it? I know, right? It's so simple. It was apples. Just had him eat apples. Just ate apples. He ate apples, ate a bunch of apples, and took a break, ate more apples, took a break. And in 3 days, he was diabetic free. I know, it's so simple. It's so simple. Because what the body wants is, it's complicated because the body is complicated, but the processes in which we can treat it are so simple. So studies have shown that a plant-based diet, this sounds so familiar, that a plant-based diet has been beneficial in reversing blocked arteries and reducing fat buildup, because what really causes diabetes initially is not sugar. Sugar becomes a problem after you have diabetes. On the front end, what causes diabetes is a buildup of fat in the arteries. It sounds the same problem with heart disease. A buildup of fat in the arteries. Do you see how these are like all connected? They're all connected. So start an exercise routine 3 times a week or so. Drink more water, stay hydrated. Add herbs such as garlic, ginger, and onions. I just mentioned those because it's the same problem. Fat in the arteries is preventing the blood, the sugar, to get out of the bloodstream into the muscle tissues. So it's floating around and it's creating a high sugar blood levels. Add herbs such as garlic, as I mentioned, get at least 8 hours sleep a night. I mean, I could use the same protocol almost for every disease. Could, but some of them are a little bit different. Okay, so on an average, we're going to run through really quick here. It's 4:13. So 80,000 people die from Alzheimer's and its complications each year. Alzheimer's and dementia is a really weird thing because, years and years ago, most people didn't have this problem. It wasn't a thing that people talked about. But in our society today, it's very prevalent. We're just not sure. Because there's people who again, never even talk about such things as dementia. And you ever heard of the blue zones? Oh, yeah. Okay, great. So you guys are familiar with these people, centenarians, usually high 90s or over 100s, that are still fully independent. And they can remember back when there were horses and buggies. No problem. I have I have a customer that comes at my store. And I've told the story before, but I just talked with him this week. And I told him that I've been telling everyone, and then he corrected me. Now I have the facts straight. But here's what I used to tell everyone. I have a patient, he's 80 years old, and he does 100 push-ups every day. And so I told him, I said, hey, man, I've been telling a lot of my friends at church and stuff that I've got a friend that's 80 years old that does 100 push-ups every day. He goes, oh, that's incorrect. He goes, I'm 87 and I do 300. I said, oh, I got to correct my story. So he's 87 years old and he does 300 push-ups every morning before he starts his day. And sharp as a tack. So we don't really need to have this issue. Now, Dr. Wes Youngberger, again, diabetes, but he's also a professional on Alzheimer's because he's the one who talked about the cleansing the brain and so forth. He talks about coconut oil. He loves coconut oil. He says coconut oil is great to help with dealing with Alzheimer's. And of course, okay, I haven't done the studies he has, but I think a good plant-based diet will also do the trick. But let's talk more about it. So Alzheimer's disease is a neurodegenerative disease characterized by irreversible neuronal loss. It's caused by an accumulation of a certain protein that affects the brain tissue. It damages the neurons and results in progressive dementia and memory loss. It's a terrible thing to lose your mind, and no one should have to deal with that. But that's what goes on with dementia. As the disease progresses, the brain loses more of its cognitive ability. It affects communication, memory, language, motor function. It's almost like MS. It also affects how one responds to and interacts with the environment. Alzheimer's is a debilitating disease that interferes with one's daily life. It eventually forces patients to depend on caretakers. Remember why I told you one of the reasons why I'm plant-based is so that I could be an asset to society and not a liability. Perfect. So eventually, when we become ill, whether it's this disease or any disease, we now become someone else's responsibility, which we don't want to be in. We actually want to be in a place where we're helping people, not being helped. But if it happens, it happens. I'm just saying, let's do what we can to address it. A family history of the disease gives, this is what they're saying, hereditary, but there are issues such as the environment include exposure to hazardous compounds, pollutants, chronic health problems. That could be the cause. I don't really believe in the hereditary situation, as I shared with you, because lifestyle can change everything. Because no one really knows specifically, like the studies out there, no one has put their finger on and said, this is what causes Alzheimer's. Because you'll have people of the same community, and some will have it and some won't. And so it's a weird thing, but we do know it happens, so they do everything to make sure that it's... do you see my solution? It's almost the same, right? Studies have shown again that a plant-based diet has been beneficial in reversing blocked arteries and reducing fat buildup. Start an exercise program for at least 3 times a week. Drink more water, stay hydrated. And herb again is garlic, ginger, onions to your diet. I can't speak enough about garlic, ginger, and onions. Get at least 8 hours sleep at night with at least 2 hours before midnight. And of course, I've added coconut oil as one of the things that we need to look at. So we've just briefly flown through, it's 419, these diseases. And, you know, they're all, there's a common thread that ties them all together. It's lifestyle choices. You weren't born with them. And so what's happening is there is an agenda, I believe, through marketing, through the world we live in, to keep people. So basically, here's the thing. If you're dead, there's no money in it. And if you're super healthy, there's no money in it. So if I can keep the masses sick, I can cash in all day. Okay, I just want to be real with you. That's where the money is. Not in dead people and not in healthy people. You know, you really can't patent broccoli. You can't make a lot of money in broccoli. Broccoli is a primary factor in a hormone called glutathione, which is a natural antioxidant. Yeah, broccoli. Right? So eat your broccoli, kids. Eat your broccoli. It's good for you. But you can't patent broccoli. So there's no money in broccoli. Water, you can't do that either. Can't patent water. Anyways, don't want to keep you long. I'm going to take a pause here. There's so much more that I want to share right now, but I'm going to stop, and we're just going to go to this the screen here just for 10 minutes so we can wrap up at 4:30. So I think my wife may come up and answer a few questions if it applies to her. But so I'm going to open the floor up, if it's okay, just for 10 minutes. See if we can address something for you. If you have any questions, if you can't think of them now, we'll be back tomorrow for the cooking class. You can write them down. We can talk more. Or I think in the bulletin, our contact information is there. We'd be happy to sit with you and answer some questions for you. So we see that heart disease, cancer, diabetes, and Alzheimer's, these are the top killers out there. And a lot of these people really didn't need to go as early as they did. So we want to make sure that we can be the solution to a problem. All right. Okay, I've got a question right here.
Okay, we look at the questions. There's going to be a microphone here. If you want to ask a question, ask it from this side. I was trying to find a stand so we could put the microphone on. In the light of that, without that, just grab this.
2 questions, quick one. Can you clarify on or expand on trans fats? And the second one is, I have a friend that has diabetes. He has changed his diet to plant-based. He's exercising. He's doing very well. However, he still has to take the medication. And when it comes to nighttime, either he eats or he crashes. Do you have any comments on that?
Right.
Sugar crashes.
Yeah, okay. So let's talk about the diabetes one. So he's still struggling, has type 2, and he's still taking meds.
He's trying not to eat at night.
Yeah.
Because his belly is less, but still there.
Right. So I'd need to, okay, so as you know, there are 9 doctors, right? And so there could be a myriad of other things. What's his water intake like? Is it good? He's well hydrated? Sleep as well? His sleep as well? Yeah. Yeah, I would need to think that through a little bit and actually maybe consult with him a little bit more to see why He is, yeah. Now, you guys know what insulin's made from, right? Does anyone know what insulin's made from? Did someone just say it? Yeah, it made from pigs. It made from pig intestines. Yeah, so it's a weird thing, right? I know. That's what they use to control blood sugar situation. But yeah, I can't answer that without just trying to address it without knowing all the details. It's like going into a dark room and not knowing where the furniture is, right? So I'm going to hit my toe somewhere. But just stay close to me on that. If I can connect with him and we can talk it through, I'd love to be able to help him because, like I said, we've seen cures in 3 days for type 2 diabetes. Type 2 diabetes is actually one of the easiest things to cure. And I know I'm saying it kind of lightly, but really, if we understand all the pieces and where the moving parts need to be adjusted, and if I can't do it, I can hook him up with Dr. Reisenberger. I mean, we have resource that we can tap into. So trans fats, trans fatty acids are basically fats that are more, well, how should I say? You know what? I don't want to give you the wrong answer, but it normally comes with fried foods, like fried potatoes, French fries. So it's heated fats that the molecules have now been changed. It's not in its natural state. The body doesn't deal with it very well. That's kind of I know it's kind of a vague overview, but it's not. So normal fats, okay, olive oil, good fat. Avocado oil, good fat. It's basically a structured solid fat, but trans fat, it's all over the place. It's not very structured. The body doesn't deal with it very well. I'll give you some better definitions of it. But speaking of trans fat and fried foods, so the famous McDonald's fries has 19 ingredients, 19. I understand the potatoes, I understand the salt, and I understand the oil. But where are the other 16 ingredients coming from? Anyway, something to consider. But we'll talk after.
So when you heat an oil, it becomes trans fat. That's basically.
Yeah, there's certain oils you shouldn't heat at all. Olive oil should never be heated. But olive oil is great for salads. Okay, so you have to be careful. Yes, some oils you have to know what you're doing.
But what about if you bake with nuts? Is that the same idea?
Yeah, we have to be very careful. Yeah, I don't want to take you down the road unless we have all the specifics, right? Because if I make a generalized statement, it's like painting a brush with everything, and I don't want to say that. So you have to be careful. We'll talk some more. So yeah, diabetes is a tricky one. So you know that we'll never find a cure for several things. We'll never find a cure for cancer, and we'll never find a cure for diabetes, right? Not that there isn't one, but it'll never be publicized. Okay, I think there was another question right here.
Simple question.
Sorry, can you go to the microphone, please?
Sorry.
Can you spell the other T? You had the red clover, golden seal, and what was the other one?
Paudiarco. So P-A-U-D-A-R-C-O. Paudiarco. Yeah, it's a very common tea for those who are trying to stay healthy when it comes to avoiding cancer. Paudiarco? No, it's not local. It's a tree bark.
South America.
Yeah.
Sorry, let me give you some information on that.
Oh, thank you.
If you go into the organic stores, you'll find Paudiarca. It comes in the drops. It also comes in the bark form. It's available at the Surrey Health Store just on King George, close to 108th. So it is around.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Dee.
Sorry, you said the three things that cancer loves: sugar, acidic environment, and oxygen. Lack of oxygen. Can you expound on the lack of oxygen?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're pretty sedentary, so most people are mouth breathers. You're familiar with mouth breathing? So a lot of people sit and breathe through their mouth, or if they're running or whatever, they breathe through their mouth. Really, you want to breathe through your nose as much as possible because you build up more what we call nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is what opens and dilates your blood vessels. Make sense? So that's why nose breathing is very important, and that actually happens in the nasal cavity. So now most people breathe only about this part of their lungs, shallow. They don't use the full extent of their lungs. They don't really actually have the diaphragm expand to open up. So what happens is, if you're sedentary, which means your job is sedentary and you go home and you do the sedentary thing and you continue this lifestyle continually, the amount of oxygen that you actually uptake is very limited. You're familiar with hemoglobin? So what happens is when you breathe in, oxygen goes down all the way down into the lungs, through the blood, into the lungs, and is transferred through the membrane, the little alveolar sac. And so the oxygen is transferred through the lining of the lungs into the bloodstream, and that's how the blood now picks up oxygen. Right? It's really interesting. How does it go from a gas into like a liquid? It's like crazy. So when you breathe through, so what happens is if you are a shallow breather, you're not maximizing the amount of blood veins that you're actually feeding with oxygen. That's why exercise, again, helps you to become a deep breather. Breathing through your nose maximizes the amount of oxygen that gets into the system to actually causes the blood vessels to dilate. So that's just an overview of how that happens. And when that happens, more oxygen in the blood will address and affect how cancer cells proliferate, how fast they grow, and if they grow at all. Did that help a little bit? Sort of? Kind of? Okay.
Thank you so much for your presentation. You touched a little bit on what I was going to ask, but not in details. One of the observations that I make is about the food industry in terms of addictive substances. So you talk about, for example, McDonald's having 19 different ingredients. I'd love for you to get into that a little bit, and also to talk about how, the processed vegan foods, because we talk about meat, but we don't talk about the processed vegan foods a lot, and to me they're equally the same. And it is true. It's just for us that it's either if we're dead, we're no use. If we're healthy, we're no use. And it really hurts me as a healthcare professional to know that health education is not something we invest in. And just talk about those things for me, because this vegan thing, we have to talk about processed vegan stuff as well. Thank you.
Amen, sister. You're speaking my language. Okay, so the other 16 ingredients are a mystery. I mean, they're not a mystery. They're out there, but they are they're addictive. They're foods that cause you to want to come back for more and more and more. Kind of like Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola is very addictive. Sugar is very addictive. Sugar is, the body sees sugar the same as cocaine. It sees it as a stimulant, makes you feel good. You always want more of it. And so You can do some research and find out what the other 16 ingredients are, but they're definitely stimulants that will keep you coming back for more. When it comes to, I'm going to leave the process ones for the end. So the educational system, so when I was in Columbus, Georgia, so after school, after UT Pines, I was there for several years, and then they asked me to manage the Country Life restaurant, which is a ministry of UT Pines. It's a retail store and a health food restaurant, so that's how I actually got started in retail management as well. And I had a cardiologist there. His name was Dr. Macheski. I still remember his name up to this day. So Dr. Macheski was the head cardiologist in southern Georgia. So Columbus, all of Georgia, the lower part of Alabama, the head cardiologist. And we were only 2 hours south of Atlanta. So, I mean, he's well known all across Georgia and Alabama, the head cardiologist. So he would come to the restaurant every day and get a salad. And I'm like, Macheski, why do you come here every day? Why do you come here every day? He goes, well, you know, plant-based living is the way to go. And he would just say that jokingly, right? I knew that, but he's a state-renowned cardiologist. Why come to our little cafe to get a salad, right? Plant-based living is the way to go, Maurice, yeah. So I would have new clients come in from time to time, just to come and shop and get a salad or lunch or something. And I'd introduce myself as a manager, and I'd say, how did you find out about us? He goes, well, my doctor recommended. Doctor recommendation. I said, who's your doctor? Dr. Macheski. I go, oh. So he would put them on a treatment program, and it was to come and get lunch every day at Country Life. True story. That was their treatment program, to get a plant-based lunch, a salad, or whatever. It was all plant-based. It was a vegan store. The point of the question is, back to the education system. I asked Macheski one day, I said, Macheski, I got a question for you, buddy. Back when you were in medical school, so we've been back in Canada now 20 years, so that would have been 25 years ago. I asked the question. I said, Macheski, back when you were in medical school, and he had finished medical school 20 years prior, so this is like 40 years ago. I said, back when you were in medical school, how many classes did you have on nutrition and heart disease? Now, you remember, he's a head cardiologist. And he said, Maurice, back when I was in medical school, I never had a class on nutrition. I had no idea. I had no idea what food and diet had to do with heart disease. He says, I'll tell you what got me involved in being vegan. He says, I would do a triple bypass on a patient. Do you know what a triple bypass is? It's a big job. It's a big job. Yeah. I told you guys last night, open up the heart, yeah. Take the veins out of the leg, stitch it in, hope that it works. He said I would do one, and then 5 years later, they were back in for a double bypass. And then 2 or 3 years later, they're back in again. I got to do another bypass. And after doing patient after patient after patient, he goes, I'm not really solving the problem. So just from cause and effect, he on his own started his own research and recognized that diet and lifestyle, not just diet and lifestyle was instrumental in reversing heart disease. And so what's been happening in the education system, and as I've spoken to many doctors, of course, I rubbed elbows with Dr. Calvin and Dr. Agatha back in the day. And what's prevalent in the education system is most medical facilities, especially at the higher level, being doctor levels, are all funded and sponsored by pharmaceutical industries. So what happens is, just before candidates would graduate from medical school, they would be taken out to lunch by certain pharmaceutical reps. They were groomed because they wanted to make sure that that doctor was writing their prescriptions. And so the educational system does not, and this can be researched, the educational system, and I'm going to close after this, after I talk about the vegan food, it's not conducive to rational therapy. It's more prone to conventional medicine, which is trained and set up to treat symptoms. Okay? One last story on this. It's my own story. This one's personal as well. So in 2009 of June, I pinched my sciatic nerve. You ever had that happen to you? Ugh, painful thing. I bent down, picked something up, pinched my nerve. My whole leg went numb and all this, right? So I went to my physio, I went to our chiro, and how did it all work out? It's all good now. So I went to see my family doctor because I have a Class 2 driver's license, which is for a coach, big buses. So you have to get a medical done all the time. So I went to see my doctor, and come to find out, he had the same thing happen to him around the same time. And his leg is atrophying. It's actually shrinking. So I said, hey, dude, what have you done for that? This is me talking to my doctor. Dude, what are you doing? After he told me the story, he said, man, I couldn't find a medication for that. I'm not making this up. He said, I checked with all my books. I couldn't find a drug or meds for the atrophy. So my muscle is actually atrophying. Because he's programmed and trained, if it's not in the medical book, there's no thing for sciatic nerve, nothing. There's no prescription. He couldn't write one. So that is the world in which we live in, and so we are struggling with that. So that's why we have to be intelligent and take the time to be acquainted with our bodies so that we know what's best for us and what's going on. Now, so when I became plant-based 33 years ago in Toronto, there was no processed foods. Didn't exist. I had to go downtown Brampton to find a little Asian lady and ask her if she had soy milk. And true story, she went like this, soy milk? Hold on. She went on the counter, she goes, this? And I go, yes, that's what I need. So soy milk was a rare thing 33 years ago. Today, it's everywhere. Of course, now you have Beyond Meat burger and all of them, right? So I became plant-based the old-fashioned way. Beans and rice, oatmeal, soups. Guess what I do today? Beans, rice, oatmeal, and soups. I keep it really simple. So I agree with the question that came up. I manage a store that sells a lot of these processed vegan stores. Now, I call them transition foods. They're not something that you should make a regular part of your diet. It's if you're taking someone or yourself off meat and you need something to transition until you get back to real, whole food, plant-based living. It's a transition. It's not a stopping point. A lot of people complain that being plant-based or vegan is expensive. Yes, if you're paying $10 for a pack of vegan cheese, you're going to go broke really quick. Just the way it is. I don't care how much money you have, because vegan processed foods is super expensive. Absolutely. But I can buy some rice and beans and I'll be good all day, all day. So I agree. We have, the industry has promoted these processed foods but they're not the answer. They're just a transition piece. Don't stop with that. I strongly recommend to Google Forks Over Knives, Dr. Esselstyn and Dr. Campbell. Now, their program is for people who are really sick because they have a no oil program. They don't use oils in their food at all. They don't recommend it. So I would say, but the general picture is really good. They go completely plant-based, whole foods. They're cooking their food from scratch. They're making their salads. They're doing everything because, the Worthington and the Loma Linda stuff and those things, a pinch now and then, here and there in a situation, but it should not be the main course of your diet every day. High in sodium. It's processed. I'm not even sure what's in it, but that's a whole different conversation. So With that, my friends, it's 4:45. I'm so happy that you guys had the time, took the time to hang out with me and my wife. And there's just so much to talk about. But first of all, remember, we are on this road with the object in mind that we can be ambassadors for Christ. That's really what it's all about. Health reform is not a salvational issue. It is not something that we do because we were trying to get to heaven. It's so that we can be better instruments, that God may be glorified, and that we can reach souls who are dying all around us, so that we can be an asset to society and not a liability. So keep that in mind. And as we close, let's bow our heads. Father in heaven, I want to thank you again for your kindness and for your mercies, which are new every morning. Please be with us now as we separate. I just trust, Father, that you'll be with each person as they travel home. Pray for their safety. And as we return tomorrow at 10 o'clock for the cooking class, and we just look forward to that time that we can share again. And we just trust all in your hands, and we thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Just really quickly before you all leave, as the new chair of the Health Committee's team, our committee has not had a chance to meet yet, just scheduling. So I just wanted to thank Donna and the previous team for setting this up, all right? We just sort of came in at the very last and said, oh yeah, that sounds great, we'll make it happen. But they had already done a lot of the legwork, and so I just want to thank Donna and the team previously that was involved in bringing Elder Hines here. And I also want to put this out to all of you. He has touched on a ton of topics that I've had up here, thinking that it would be wonderful that we could bring in. I actually want to bring Tim Rosenberg here. I'd already thought of that.
Perfect.
And so several other topics have already been we've been bantering back and forth on WhatsApp, what about this, what about that? And we are planning to meet in the next few weeks. So I want to put this out to you guys because it doesn't really do us any good as a health team to be presenting things that you don't care about, right? So we are welcoming your ideas and topics of things that you might like to hear now that he's brought up a ton of different ideas of things. So if you have some things that you would like us to maybe bring in another speaker or do some other things, just short things here within the church, please share those with us, okay? So that we are able to tailor and present things in the next year or two that are topics that you guys are interested in that are going to benefit you and your health. So I just want to throw that out there before you run away. Just start thinking about that, and hopefully we will see you all tomorrow at 10.